G'day, I'm Andrew Horrell, currently here with Fishing Game Hawke's Bay. We're just going to be talking about catch and release. Only 1 in 10 fish are kept by Hawke's Bay anglers, based upon this recent diary information, meaning that 90% of the total catch is released. We need to preserve fisheries for our future generation. We want to avoid trout dying of exhaustion, trauma or poor handling techniques. Trout should be landed as quickly as possible to minimise the stress that can build up. To be successful, you should use barbless hooks or debarbing the hook using some pliers or forceps. Leaders should be strong enough to land the fish and use the heaviest possible. Drop down in leader size if the fish keep refusing your fly or lure. Rods should be strong enough to guide the fish into the net, so don't undergun yourself by selecting a rod that isn't strong enough. A 5-weight rod is a good compromise. During the summer months, the water temperature can rise, which means the oxygen levels can drop out too. So it's important not to stress the trout out in the shallows. Best way to handle a trout is to not handle it at all. Trout are more fragile than you think. If you're planning to release it, grab the leader and see if you can unhook the trout using pliers, forceps or your fingers. Resuscitation may not be needed in this case. Where possible, don't remove the trout from the water. It might be necessary to touch the fish in order to release it. It might be a big fish, big exhausted or even foul hooked. Always completely wet your hands before touching a fish. This will ensure you don't remove the protective mucus layer. Cold wet hands are best. Gently cradle the trout in your hands and never squeeze the fish, as this can affect vital organs. Never hold a trout above the ground. Keep it above the water in case it slips out of your grip. Don't leave a trout dangling on your line. Never drag a trout onto a sandy bank or let it flap around on the hot rocks, as this will damage the fish. A landing net is helpful in preventing harm to the fish. Landing nets that are knotless or rubber are preferable. If a hook has been swallowed deep, it is best to cut your leader and leave the fly there rather than try to rip it out. Moving water at a walking speed is a good location to revive a trout that you want to release. Gently hold the trout's nose in the current by carefully cradling it so that it doesn't get washed downstream. Don't grip the fish tightly. Watch for the trout's gills to move as the trout recovers. The fish should be able to remain upright by itself, but if it can't, then hold it until it can. Resuscitation of a trout can take from anywhere between 10 seconds to a minute. The fish will start to move and kick once recovered, so release your gentle grip and let the fish swim off by itself. When taking photographs, have your camera set up beforehand. Underwater cameras provide a cool way of showing off your fish in its natural environment and is much less stressful when planning to release a fish. Keep the trout in water for as long as possible before taking a photograph. Ideally, the photo should show the angler kneeling in the water with wet hands and holding the fish up with the water dripping off it. Return the fish to the water between shots. Finally, don't forget to check, clean and dry when moving from one waterway to the next to prevent the spread of DIDYMO and other unwanted nasties. Hopefully you learned something today about the best way to handle trout when you intend to release them. Tight lines and enjoy the new fishing season starting October 1.